It's officially summer. We're now 2 months in with 4 to go in the baseball season. And we officially have some more players to panic about. Now, I don't typically talk about injured players on the panic player video because, injuries are a little different thing from underachieving or busting or whatever. But in this case, we have both. And I'm talking about the reigning NL Cy Young winner, Blake Snell. I was all set to talk about Snell anyways before his Sunday start, but he left early with a groin injury. Add this on top of this previous IL stint. Remember, he had a left adductor strain, which is something that is kind of a similar region. So now he's probably likely to hit the shelf. Not going to say, and it's not official yet, but it seems the fact that he was pulled immediately and has already had some health troubles seems likely he's going to miss time. So you stash him, you wait till he comes back, whatever. But you should have been panicked anyways. The time Snell has been on the mound for San Francisco this year, it's been pretty much as bad as you can possibly get. Look, his latest start where he didn't even go 5 innings, he somehow gave up multiple runs and yet lowered his ERA down to 9.51 with a whip that's still now just under 2. Now, I will say this. Before even looking into Snell for research purposes here, I would say my panic level was at about a 9. I was telling everyone, look, just get out from underneath him. This is not going to be his year. All sorts of issues. I mean, just sell low while you can. But I did a little digging, and now I'm starting to second guess. Well, I'll say this. It might actually be good that he does get some time on the IL if that happens and get a little bit of rest. He needs to be healthy. We know this. This goes for every pitcher. But what I noticed is that his injury for this season, that adductor strain I mentioned earlier, it's exactly the same injury he had around the exact same time early season in 2022 when he was with the Padres. Now, in that year, he also got off to a really bad start. Not this bad, but still. In May, he was 0-2 with a 4.80 ERA, and then in June, worse, he was 0-3 with a 6.20 ERA. And once he got right and felt right, the rest of the season, he didn't have a single month with an ERA over 3. So it seems obvious that health was the issue back then. Maybe that's all the issue is now. Obviously, a recurring injury, not a good sign, but I will say this holds out hope for the rest of the season. So my panic has definitely dropped for him, but at the same time, you can't love the fact that now you're going to have to wait until another 2 weeks, 3 weeks, who knows at this point. I'm not going to say sell, get rid of him for anything. I'm going to say maybe just stash. Again, it might be good that you can at least put him on the IL, and let's see if he turns out to be his elite self for the rest of the season as opposed to what we've seen so far. Another top-tier left-handed pitcher that is actually getting dropped in fantasy leagues now is Jordan Montgomery. Remember, this year he's an Arizona Diamondback after failing to secure the bag as a Scott Boras client. Well, he dropped Scott Boras, and now he's with somebody else, but he's still Diamondback at least for 1 year. He's going to have to prove that he does deserve a long-term contract. And he's done pretty much the opposite. This has been his worst start so far, a 5.48 ERA and a 1.56 whip. And you can understand why people are fed up here, right? And this is unlike Blake Snell, not a guy who gets elite strikeout numbers. Arizona's been good this year. Montgomery did get off to a slow start because of that contract situation. Maybe that's affected him, but look, it's June now. How much longer can we say? He's a little rusty. His latest outing was kind of the final straw for a lot of fantasy owners as he gave up 6 earned runs. And really, he's been very up and down, but the downs have outweighed the ups. So at this point, what are we doing? Are we thinking that maybe he's just not taken to his new team? Remember, this is his 3rd team in 2 seasons. He's been traded a couple times, now signed a new deal. You got to wonder if he's still just going to take some time to acclimate here. Well, it really didn't take him that long to acclimate to his other 2 teams. I don't think that's what it is. I don't think we can excuse the late start anymore. I'll tell you what's going on with Jordan Montgomery specifically. It's the sinker. Talk about the fact that his breaking stuff has been actually really good, but for some reason, his fastball, which is a sinker, has been terrible. And that is his main pitch. Right now, opposing batters hitting .373 against his sinker. And again, this is the pitch that he throws the most often. It's hard to see how he has such a low run value just on that sinker because, again, this is something he's thrown with such frequency. It's not a big change from year to year as far as the movement on this pitch. Slightly less horizontal movement, but still, it's sinking. It just seems like he's locating it wrong. It's kind of been all over the place and also not low enough in the zone. He's allowing hitters to just tee off on it. This is a fly ball pitcher primarily. He depends on the sinker to induce soft contact, get more ground balls. He's not doing it. He's leaving it over the heart of the plate too often. This is fixable. This is something I think he will get around to improving at some point. I do think that this is somebody that, while I will say I'm not buying low on, I'm going to hold out. If somebody has dropped in your league, worth a stash, and let's see once he rights the ship if he can get back to being his typical self. He's got a lot to play for this year. Again, didn't get that long-term deal he wanted. He still needs some team to think that he is worth it. All right, now I finally want to take a hard look at Dansby Swanson of the Cubs. This is somebody who was a top 100 draft pick in nearly all fantasy leagues, and he's looking very droppable these days. In fact, his roster rate is down to 81%. Some people are just tired of waiting. You got to wonder, now that he's age 30, is that prime over? Is this somebody who's lost a little bit in terms of speed, in terms of bat speed? What gives? He's only given you 4 home runs, 4 stolen bases, and his batting average is down to .203 after going 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts on Sunday. And this is one of the issues. That strikeout rate right now is at a career high 27% for Swanson. He did miss time early in the season with a knee sprain. Of course, there's not a big coincidence here that a lot of these players who are struggling have had some sort of injury or something going on here that might be affecting them physically. But is that really what we can point to saying this is what's making him strike out so much? For me, I think it's a little bit of everything. I mean, the injury might play a small part in it, especially with the speed. But also, we've talked about this with guys like Nico Horner. A lot of the Cubs kind of underachieving offensively. They're also not running nearly as much under new manager Craig Counsell. And I do think that maybe some of those skills are going to do at least a slight decline here because of age. Swanson's a guy who is really more of a floor play than a ceiling play in terms of fantasy stats. So right now, my panic level is kind of at a 7. I don't think he's a must-hold, really, because, at some point, sure, he might heat up a little bit, but I don't want to necessarily wait too long to find out if it happens. What about O'Neal Cruz, the shortstop for Pittsburgh? This was supposed to be an absolute stud, power, speed. He's young. I mean, this is somebody who could be another version of Elly De La Cruz, but with even more power. Well, I've said it before. If bat speed is a counting stat in your Roto League, then yeah, he's valuable. I don't think we can even call him a StatCast hero because he's only really good in a very few specific areas, like bat speed, like hard hit rate and barrel rate. Those things are all impressive. Those things make highlights. But not so impressive is the plate discipline, the chase rate, and the expected stats aren't that great. His batting average is exactly what he's deserving. A 249 XBA. He's hitting in the 240s. And I think that's pretty much what we should expect from him going forward. A 34.4% K rate, that's not good for anybody, slugger or not. I really think the worst thing here, the most insulting part of O'Neal Cruz, has been that he only stole 1 base in the entire month of May. It's not like even with some of these other struggling stars, like a Corbin Carroll, somebody who's like, well, at least he was getting you steals. He's not even running anymore. Now, I do think we will see some better things from Cruz going forward, but again, you have to set some realistic expectations here. Again, the power is legit. That's not even a question. But is he going to have enough contact? Is he going to get on base enough to steal bases? And is he going to be a liability in terms of batting average? And this lineup isn't doing him any favors, right? Pittsburgh Pirates are what they are. So I will say this in terms of Cruz, specifically my panic level, is about a 6 because to some extent, I didn't think he was going to be a 30-30 guy this year. I didn't think he was going to really hit for average. So as long as you understand what you're getting with him is he definitely has the upside to get you 20, 25 home runs, sure. Double-digit steals should be a given. You've got to think he'll start running at some point. But man, other than that, I don't think we can expect any sort of a full-fledged breakout. Now, here's a new name. Haven't talked about Yanir Diaz, the catcher for the Houston Astros yet. He was one of the top catchers drafted and expected to be a starter for your fantasy squad after posting his breakout year last year. As a rookie, holding his own in that loaded Astros lineup, he hit 282 with 23 home runs and 60 RBIs. Again, for a catcher who didn't even play the entire season, that's really impressive. But instead of stepping up to become one of the best offensive catchers in the league this year, taking a step back, he's only batting 249 now, 3 home runs. 23 RBIs is decent, but again, this is definitely not what you're hoping for. And here's the real concerning part. This is why you should be maybe panicking a little bit. He's losing playing time, and that's so valuable, especially at the catcher position. He didn't just get Sunday off like a lot of regulars do. Also got Saturday off. Victor Caratini has seen more time behind the dish, and Caratini took advantage, hitting a home run on Sunday. I don't think Diaz is in danger of losing his job altogether or getting sent down or anything like that, but if he starts to lose a few ABs here and there and he's already not hitting that great, you got to wonder, am I sticking with him in fantasy? So am I worried about Diaz? Yeah, I am. I'm actually going to set the panic meter all the way up to 8. Now, Diaz is somebody who, again, feels like he kind of came out of nowhere last year. I'm always a little leery about these guys. You don't know after an impressive rookie debut, are they going to follow up with a better season or take a step back? I mean, think about some guys, absolute fantasy studs last year, like Corbin Carroll. Not just taking a step back, he's taken about 10 or 12. He's just running backwards full-fledged. Diaz, again, not a huge step back, but obviously we're not seeing what we saw last year. And then by popular demand, because everyone keeps asking, rightfully so, what about Randy Arozarena? Heading into a new week here, he's hitting 162. What's wrong with Arozarena? Well, here's the simple, obvious facts. The batting average is way down, the strikeout rate is up. Now, what's behind this? Looks like it's a launch angle issue. Now, it's funny because with Arozarena, the knock on him was for a guy with such legit power, he was hitting too many ground balls. In fact, earlier in his career, it was really frustrating is that after we saw him just go off in the postseason with all those home runs, we didn't really see that in the regular season because he hit so many ground balls. He didn't lift the ball enough. And now he has lifted that launch angle quite a bit, but too much. His pop-up rate is high, and it's never a good thing, and he's hitting a lot more fly balls. The problem is he's hitting fewer line drives, and that's what you really want, right? It's not about grounders, fly balls. You want that line drive rate to be up because that is most often going to be where you get those base hits. Whereas the major league average is 25% for line drive rate, his is down to 18%. And he's specifically doing much worse this year against the fastball, which again, that's typically not what you see. Usually, hitters will have more trouble against breaking stuff. But, for some reason this year, his timing is off, his launch angle is off. These are fixable issues. There haven't been any physical issues we know about. Is it going to happen? Because I feel like I said all this a month ago and nothing has really changed. It seems like it could, and I will say this, don't drop Arozarena, right? Yes, you should be very frustrated and worried, and I'll say right now, well, the panic level hasn't changed too much, but for me, it's still just about a 5 because I feel like we're going to see at some point him turn things around. So I don't want to buy low yet on a guy who's just hitting this poorly, but I will say if somebody's going to give him to me for almost nothing, I'll take him. As we're just about 1/3 of the way through the season, I took stock of all the best pitchers and hitters in the league and did my rest of season rankings. Starting pitchers has already been up. If you didn't catch the top 50 hitters, check this out. It's the rest of season ranks to know where your players may fall.